Hello and thank you for joining us on the Thursday edition of Journalist Hangout, reaching you from our new studios here at Eco Atlantic City, Victoria Island, Lagos. I am Benga Oreshegun. Today on the program, NLC kicks against 50% telecom tariff hike, threatens nationwide boycott. And later on the show, federal government rejects 532 billion naira variation for 90 billion naira Abuja Airport runway contract. I'll be hanging out with Tunde Abaton and Asukwo James. Journalist Hangout starts right now. Now let's begin the conversation. This time we begin with developments in the telecommunications sector. A few days ago, the Nigerian Communications Commission (NCC) approved a 50% tariff adjustment for telecom services, citing rising operational costs. This marks the first rate adjustment since 2013. In response, the Nigerian Labour Congress (NLC) has urged Nigerians to prepare for a nationwide boycott in protests. In a statement, the NLC President Joe Ajero condemned the tariff hike, calling it an unjust burden on citizens already struggling with economic hardships. The Labour Union also criticized the timing of the hike, noting that it coincides with rising inflation and declining purchasing power. Ajero emphasized that telecom services have become a basic necessity, with the average Nigerian worker spending about 10% of their income on telecom charges. He urged all Nigerian workers and the public to reject the hike. All right, Tunde Abasan, let me start with you. Is NLC fighting a wrong battle concerning this hike?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, yeah, you mentioned the other time that this is the first time in 10 years, probably the NCC
exactly
will empower or
the
allow
operators.
the telecom operators to increase. Well, it is not enough reason to ask them to increase by 50%, considering the prevailing economic situation in the country now. Yes, you may say the NSC is only representing workers, but by and large, many other Nigerians are now using telecommunications. It has become a very important part of our daily life, whether you like it or not.
But let me cut you in there.
Yes.
If you also remember, like I said, 10 or 12 years ago, that was the last time they did. But we had COVID. We had so many things, inflation and so many things in the past 10 years, they did not increase. And now they are doing it now. Well, why is it so wrong?
Yes, they can do it, but you also have to know that time and season waits for nobody. At this point in time in Nigeria, I think 50% is on the high side.
But have they not tried to not?
They are businessmen. They are in business. But we also have to know that it is a component part of daily living of Nigeria. That telephone is very important now in Nigeria. It is no longer for the an issue say it is for the rich. It is for everybody. So when you look at the multiplier effect, and when you look at the fact that a lot of services are likely to be affected by this increase, I think 50%, I'm not against any increase. Like every other sectors have tried to justify the economic variations, the economic changes that is happening in Nigeria to justify increase in their services. But that is not to say you take them to 50%.
Is it not better than shutting down?
Well, shutting down may be a way of protesting. I don't think they will. I don't. It may be a protesting.
Shutting down will be a way of protesting.
They may not necessarily shut down, but I think they have left a caveat for the NCC and for the organized labor and Nigerians to negotiate. But I think 50% is not too reasonable at this point in time.
Okay, like how many percent would you have suggested?
Well, maybe they should have started with 20% increase.
They talked about timing of this increase. What are your thoughts on that part?
Well, at this point, I remember last year, MTN was even saying they want to shut down because they could not. They were already posting losses. Most of the telcos were already posting losses because, the Naira devaluation, affected them seriously. I remember even MTN posted about 519 billion you know, during the Naira devaluation. Airtel posted about $549 million. Okay, so it means that the telcos were already thinking of closing shop, which I know that they know that Nigeria has one of the largest population in sub-Saharan Africa. So it would have been difficult for them. Maybe they would have found a way around it, but the major reasons they were giving was because the operational cost was going high. Now, in terms of timing, you know, I feel that, you know, they actually wanted 100% before NCC, I think after deliberations and all that, exactly. with them, you know, because I'm not sure they actually had the NLC or any member of maybe the NECA, you know, for people to sit down and then begin to discuss on how much this the tariff should be increased. But they just decided, you know, the NCC just decided it has to be 50%. But there's no time. Okay. The thing is, there's no time for that to be increased. But perhaps they should have just increased, just like Abaton said. Maybe they could have started with, you know, saying that, okay, we'll give you maybe another 1 year or 2 years. Start with maybe 20%, 25%, or even 15%.
But another thing is, I asked Abaton the first time that, is the NLC fighting a wrong battle here? Why is the NLC not looking at the reasons for the increase? Operational cost, inflation, you know, forex, all of these things. Why is the NLC not looking at that and looking at the telecoms?
NLC has been fighting for all these things that you are talking about.
Have they really been
Yes,
fighting?
because it affects the workers. When you talk about inflation, it is the workers that will also... Don't forget, they fought for minimum wage to be increased from 30 to 70. So a part of what they were discussing was they were thinking that prices at that time would be constant, not knowing that fuel prices will go up and then inflation will be going up. You understand? Okay. So in 30,000, if you look at how much inflation was then, it wasn't as high as now. Sure. You understand? So NLC will also be looking at, okay, fine, for them to increase now, perhaps they also have to have shifted a little bit and hold on a bit, because this has become making calls or using data has become part and parcel of a worker's life.
I don't want to hold brief for the telecoms, you know, operators, but looking at different businesses, the past 10 years, if you sell a crate of egg now, I'm sure you must have increased like maybe 4 or 5 times the past 10 years. Now they did not increase. Yes. Even during the time of COVID, when people were, they did not increase.
It's just unfortunate that...
so why are they haggling over this?
No, it's just unfortunate that we have found ourselves in this. You understand? You know, I feel for them, because most of them have base stations, and those base stations, they need to secure those base stations.
They run on diesel.
Security. They run on diesel. And some of them, when people are complaining, oh, we don't have maybe network somewhere, they need to get the towers in that particular place. So, and even the tower companies have also increased their tariff. They increased by 300%. You understand? So if you look at the issues they also brought forward, exactly, you also pity them. Exactly. You know, but I feel that where maybe they might have been, they dropped the ball would have been for them to also look at, okay, consider your consumers. Will they be able to pay at this particular period? Because let me tell you...
are the consumers also considering the telecoms operators?
Let me tell you, it means that you that will, anytime I call you, start greeting me, good morning, how are you, how is your family? You won't be able to do that.
You go straight to the point.
You have to write what you want to tell me, and then you go straight to the point.
You have to economize your words.
You economize your words.
Talk is no longer cheap.
It's not cheap.
But I want to come in here. Was the NCC quick in reaching a conclusion on the hike?
Well, taking into consideration the NCC is the major regulator of the telecommunication industry, they will have taken a lot of things into consideration. But I won't say they are quick. But the only thing, the onus is that they shouldn't have allowed such a margin of increase based on the prevailing economic situation in the country. Yes, these people are big players. Like in the oil, I was explaining to somebody, an elderly person a few days ago, that whatever happens to the oil price in the international market, will affect Nigeria.
Exactly.
That what is happening now is a function of the international market. That Nigeria is just a player, and Nigeria is also a beneficiary whenever there's the increase in the price of crude oil, because we are making this. But we also have to service our system with foreign money. Okay. So these telecommunication companies, they have every right to adjust. Nobody is saying that the price, after all, the price of coke has increased from probably 150 naira to about 450 naira.
Yes.
Well, nobody is saying that they should not be in business, or they should be in business to record losses, that they should be out of business. Because if they are out of business, a lot of things will be disrupted in Nigeria.
Exactly.
The whole life of Nigerians are now anchored on telecommunication. If you can practicalize it, shut down telecommunication in Lagos alone, there will be chaos that will take 1 week to resolve it. Shut it down for 2 hours. A lot of people will be on the street because communication has become very important.
Exactly.
But without that, taking into consideration the fact that the NCC has to also free the purse of the people and come to the center of it all. Let us say, like you said, 25%, 20%, and the increase will be graduated over time. Let it be
maybe 2 years.
2 years, maybe 1 year over a period of time.
Now, some persons have argued that, hey, the subscribers were not carried along when these negotiations were. But should the NLC and subscribers be actually carried along when these negotiations were actually going?
You know, I think that is what so many people are saying, that they should have been carried along. But don't forget, these guys are business
people. They are business people.
But they are serving Nigerians.
Yeah,
they are serving Nigerian workers as well.
Yes, I know. But they are private owners. Okay. I think apart from MTN that is on the stock market, every other one is out there. You understand? So if they would have, for consideration reasons, in quotes, maybe they could have, invited the NLC to sit down to look at it. But if you look at how many people are, under the umbrella of NLC, the number is not much. But we know that we have so many Nigerians who are actually using their services. So that is where they could have considered. Because don't forget, there are some people who are not under the employment of government, and they are not under the employment of the private sector, but they are into SMEs who are using these services. Okay. They just sit in their homes. Look, take for instance, those who are doing logistics business, or doing online business. All they need to do is to call you, please deliver this thing here from point A to point B. That is what they do, and they are making their money. So it shows the importance of having customers or consumers of these services. So perhaps they could have taken those ones into consideration. Because I was talking to somebody today, and the person was saying, I'm not sure I'll be able to make calls anymore. They have to start looking at doing online calls. So you will have more online calls, net calls, than the normal calls, which has even increased from 11 naira to 15 naira now per minute. Even SMS from 4 naira to 6 naira. So people will reduce some of those things that we usually have for a lesser amount to something more cheaper. So they have to look at it. So I think where maybe, I won't say they dropped the ball, but they could have also considered, because they are into business, they have a lot of things that is affecting their business. Perhaps they could have just said, okay, these consumers, now that we are talking, is now a debate. I feel they can start talking about maybe reducing the tariff. Maybe NCC can sit down with them and see how they can reduce this tariff so that Nigerians would, NLC will not shut down the country because of it, because they are already threatening that they want to shut down because of 50%. But these are private owners. They are into business. So if they are telling you that they are recording losses, so there are two things. One thing we have to give is either they lay off workers for them to be in business, or the tariff will remain. Which I think maybe they've even started laying off workers. Yeah, exactly. Because they are recording losses already. They are recording losses. But just like what I asked, should the NLC and the subscribers be carried along when these negotiations are going on, the tariff increase?
Well, let us be practical. We are in a deregulated economy. That is, everybody is a player now. It's like the issue of oil. Yes, we are not saying that the public should not be carried along, because we are talking of public, not necessarily NLC. When we are talking of public, it involves all Nigerians,
everybody,
all Nigerians. But what we are saying is that as a chief regulator, the NCC should be in a position to negotiate because they are regulating on behalf of Nigerians. It's not possible for you to say how many NGOs are you going to invite, how many members of the NLC are going to invite. So the NCC, as the chief regulator, should be able to know what is reasonable at this point in time.
So you think the 50% that was negotiated, on behalf of Nigeria by NCC was not in the favor of Nigerians?
It's not in the favor of Nigerians.
Really?
So I think they should come down a little bit, so that to send a message that they feel the. In as much as we know that telecommunication has become a part and parcel of our daily life, nobody can doubt that, and nobody can doubt the fact that shutting it down will also affect our economy negatively. It's going to disrupt. Social disruption is going to happen in Nigeria. So that is at the same time, they also have to be in business. So let us look at the two together and let them come to the center table and discuss. But we have to know that business of telecommunication is pure business. You don't also have to, a buyer has no right to compel the seller to sell what he wants to sell. And the seller too has no right to compel the buyer to buy at his own particular price. Everybody has to come to the center table and negotiate.
Well, it is very important. So for instance, if we had like maybe a federal government owned, business,
they cannot even do it free of charge.
Like Nitel, for instance. If we had like Nitel, you understand, maybe you could be saying, maybe Nitel can reduce their tariff, and Nigeria, you understand what I mean?
Yes. But another thing is, since we cannot agree that communication is key. Man cannot not communicate.
Exactly.
One of my lecturers used to tell me that. But now that we know that it is key, they are integral, we can't do without them. Yes. Should the government support them?
Well, what kind of support are you saying?
Maybe tax relief or something.
I think you are not talking of subsidy.
Support. Any support whatsoever. It could be in the tax relief or something. Do you think the government should support just so that they can breathe a little? And when they breathe a little, it will cascade down to,
we are in an era, even all over the world, where government is gradually withdrawing from the act of doing business. If government has its hands full in doing business, business may not be efficient. On their own, the telcos have their own problem, because I believe that they are not improving on their services, whether you like it or not. There's called breaks, they are not improving, they are not investing. So what I think government can do, they can only do to the NCC. I'm not saying that government should come in and say they want to subsidize.
No, not basically subsidize. It could be maybe tax waivers or something. Just something. Just so that they can breathe a little.
These people are into business, and they have to know that they cannot be in business if Nigerians are not communicating. A school cannot be successful if parents don't bring their teachers to
But we see these things happen in developed countries whereby they help private companies, just so that, we saw that in the UK with furlough. So that some companies will not downsize. They came up to, okay, let us help.
You don't want to agree with the fact that in the last 6 months or 1 year, the services offered by telcos have dropped significantly. So if you say government should help them in form of support one way or the other, one is not really there out, but they also have to live up to expectation. Because if I tell you my own experience with NEPA and Abe, this course
as
now,
we
know that they are not good business.
As we wrap up on this, do you support what the NLC is trying to do, that they want to down to because of this? Are you in support of them?
Let the NLC negotiate before downing tools.
Negotiate with who? With NCC and the telecom?
And the telecom, because it has far-reaching effect on Nigeria.
Without bringing the government in?
Yes, let us.
Yeah, I think. Do you support what the NLC is doing?
No, the thing is, NLC you shouldn't be threatening that you want to shut down. Every time shutting down.
Let there be discussion.
If you have not gone, before strike, there need to be discussions.
Round table.
So let's get to that point. So all this threat about shutting down, Ajero has forgotten, what he did some months back, that he shut down the entire airspace, including even the power. So we have not. So many Nigerians have not forgotten that. So you should stop threatening people. If you want to discuss, go and discuss with the telcos. Talk to them in a very, very gentleman manner. and then let them also be the ones to say, okay, fine, because of how you have approached us,
then we'll look at,
it and then reduce.
Not with threats. I totally agree with that. All right, gentlemen, let's move straight to our next conversation. Next, we turn to Nigeria's fight against insecurity. As the military advances against notorious terrorist leader Bello Turji, it appears that troops are steadily closing in on him following a series of successful bombardments on his hideouts. In recent weeks, the Nigerian military has intensified operations targeting Turji's known hideouts across